Today we're going to be talking about how your boy pulled an Instagram baddie. And you know how I roll. I walk in with like 7 girls. I was popping bottles in the club, getting yachts every week. When you're a rich, young guy in one of the fanciest restaurants in Miami, you know, growing up, I always wanted to be that guy in a relationship where people would look and think, how did he pull that off? And I think I've done a pretty good job of that. In case you didn't know, my girlfriend is the lovely Caro V, model, social media superstar, TV personality, and certified Instagram baddie. Neither one of us have actually shared this story on the internet before, but we actually met back in 2020. At the time, I was going through what I like to call my Justin Bieber phase, or what's more commonly known as the fuckboy phase. If you watched any of my content from back then, you'll know that I was partying a lot. I was popping bottles in the club, getting yachts every week, flying girls in from all over the world, pretty much doing anything any other 25-year-old millionaire would do. I just moved to Miami at the time, and one thing I used to do was have huge dinners at fancy restaurants. I'm sure you've seen all the bougie people on Instagram post these restaurants all the time, these types of dinners. But essentially what I was doing is I was inviting 1 or 2 of my guy friends and 7 to 12 girls.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Too much pussy in my ears.
And I don't condone this type of behavior anymore, but again, it was my fuckboy phase, so what else was I supposed to do? As douchey as it sounds, the idea was to get the ratio of women to men as crazy as possible, because when you're a rich, young guy in one of the fanciest restaurants in Miami, naturally all the women are going to fight for your attention. So when you have this many women to a few men, the roles reverse and the women are the ones chasing you instead of you having to chase the women. So back in 2020, I planned one of these dinners and we were planning on meeting at a girl's place before heading over. And you know how I roll. I walk in with like 7 girls. We all start drinking, having fun, hanging out, talking. And that's when my friend walks in with 2 more girls. The first girl was his date for the night, but the second girl, she instantly caught my eye. And that was the first time we ever met. Her friend invited her to my dinner. So I introduce myself, we start talking, eventually we head over to dinner, and completely by coincidence, out of all the girls that were there, I ended up sitting next to her. Keep in mind, I had just met her. I probably had the lowest chances of sleeping with her because we didn't know each other and we just met. But I think everything happens for a reason. The dinner starts, I start rizzing all these girls up. I turn it on, everyone's having a good time, everyone's laughing, I'm getting everyone drinks, and we all end up having a good night. And this is where it gets a little bit sticky. At the end of the night, I'm drunk and one of the girls wants to come home with me. So that night, I ended up going home with a completely different girl. I don't know if it was a good look or a bad look. Here's the reason why. Women all claim they don't want a guy that talks to a bunch of girls or that doesn't text a bunch of women. But at the same time, they don't want the guy that no women want. They want the guy that every girl wants, but they want to be the one to catch him. So long story short, we ended up parting ways that night, but at dinner we exchanged social medias and she caught my eye, so naturally, I slid in her DMs. And I came in hot. I like to go big or go home, so I invited to fly her out to the Maldives to stay in an underwater hotel that cost like $10,000 a night. And she ignored me. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that the only requirement to get pretty women is money. And coming from someone who's had money and dated some of the prettiest women in the world, money doesn't do shit for you. These women have professional athletes, rappers, and A-list celebrities in their DMs. Having money is a prerequisite. The only thing money will do for you is get you in the same rooms as these women to talk to them. At the end of the day, it still depends on a lot of other factors, like your personality, your sense of humor, how well you take care of yourself. So yeah, I got ignored. My fancy vacation didn't move her. She probably had 20 other dudes in her DMs offering the same thing, but she just wasn't the type of girl to get flown out randomly. I was just another rich guy in her DMs that she ignored. I didn't know it at the time, but that dinner would be the last time I saw her in 2 years. I didn't know she was European and she was in the United States on a visa, which was expiring.
Because you know what? I get it every single day. Everybody thinks that I'm American and everybody thinks I grew up in America and they don't realize I'm not American. I was self-employed and that's how I was able to stay in the country for 1 year. And now my visa's over. So that's why I'm leaving in 7 days.
So she had to go back to Europe and I was thinking that was the end of that. What happened next was interesting because I have a rule that if a girl ignores me, I never message them ever again. I have seen way too many guys message a girl 100 times just to get ignored 100 times. And I'm not that guy. If a girl wants to ignore me, that's fine. It's her loss. So a couple months goes by. Obviously, we still follow each other on Instagram. So she sees what I'm up to on Instagram. I see what she's up to on Instagram. I post my life, she posts her life. And as someone that's made all their money through social media marketing, I've kind of optimized my social media to get as many girls as possible. Let me explain. Women typically like a guy who's financially secure, who works on himself, who's in good shape, who has a sense of humor, who has a good personality. And all of my Instagram posts typically contain an element of those things. Me working on my business, how much my business is making, shirtless gym picture, deep quote, me being funny, funny meme, me going out and having fun and having a great life and enjoying my lifestyle. Just like marketing a business, I was marketing myself. And the funny part about social media is people begin to feel like they know you. So one day I get a reply on one of my Instagram stories and it's from her. But again, I have my rule. If a girl ignores me, I don't reply, so I don't message her back. Then a week later, another message from her. Keep in mind, I've been around a lot of these Instagram girls and I know how they are. So I thought it was really interesting and down to earth how she would double message me. Because typically a lot of these girls that are popping on Instagram, they normally don't double text because they have too much of an ego. So I thought this was interesting. This was a little bit down to earth. This was new. A couple weeks goes by and boom, she messaged me again. And I know girls like her have never been ignored in their life. So I know she's definitely feeling some type of way. And ladies, you'll know what I mean when I say this. You know when you're not getting attention and you want it more? I definitely feel like that's what she was doing, but I thought it was cute. For her to message me 3 times in a row, it showed how down to earth she was and how she didn't feel like she was better than everyone else. So this time I decide fuck it, and I end up breaking my rule and I reply back. We talk for a little and we DM for a little, and then out of nowhere, silence for months. I go about my life, she goes about hers, but one thing I kept doing was working on myself. If there's one takeaway I can give to all the guys watching this video, it isn't to ignore a girl, because if you have nothing worth chasing, she'll just ignore you back and never talk to you ever again. The takeaway is to work on yourself as much as possible and make yourself someone that girls want to be with. Go to the gym and put on muscle, start a business, start making money, build a personality, go on adventures and have interesting stories. These things will make women want you more than anything else. Instead of chasing women, become someone that's worth chasing. Don't learn from all these pickup artists who just try to trick women into sleeping with them. Become someone that women are proud to be with. So I keep working on myself, gym, business, travel, jokes, and sure enough, she messages me again. We start talking more and more, and eventually she tells me she got her visa renewed and she's coming back to the United States. When she comes back, I invite her to hang out, we end up going to lunch, and something funny happened. She spilled her drink all over herself. And that's when I started to realize that this girl wasn't like a lot of the girls I've met. On top of that, I think her seeing me sober, not surrounded by a bunch of Miami women, definitely helped earn me some points with her. At the time, she tells me she's looking for a place in Miami, and in the meanwhile, she was staying at a hotel spending a bunch of money. Being the gentleman that I am, I offered to let her stay at my place. We hung out for a couple of days and we really start hitting it off. And you know when you're hanging out with someone and you start catching feelings? That's exactly what happened. I leave to Costa Rica, she leaves to LA, we meet back in Miami, and the rest is history. This past year, we've been working on a relationship, traveling, and getting to know each other better and better. We've traveled to 8 different countries together, been on a ton of adventures, and even started a business together. If there's one thing I learned from this, it's that love works in mysterious ways. When we met each other, I was the furthest thing from relationship material, and I don't think she ever thought that she would end up with me. But when you work on yourself, you become the prize. So if you're looking for love, don't try to force something that isn't working. Work on yourself and become someone worth wanting. That's all for me today. Love you guys. What's your ethnicity? Sexy.
Ah ha ha.